I've been so anti standing meeting
Yeah.
in all of my work, or like audience ops, like all my companies. I've never had a standing weekly meeting with anyone.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
it's very helpful for John and I because we know for our co-founder relationship, we need to talk on the phone at least once a week. But
yeah,
we've been bad. Like we have this standing meeting that's still in our calendar every Wednesday morning. That it's called Just John and Justin Call, 10:30 a.m. every Wednesday. We haven't done that in ages.
yeah,
But once we hired Helen, we started doing these weekly meetings where she runs the whole meeting. She's our customer success person, and she just goes, here are all the things I've noticed in support this week. Here's some things you should be thinking about. And she's kind of the one pushing both John
that's what
and
I've heard from friends. And actually, in my yeah, like have your team run the meeting, because when I think as the founder, and I've always been a solo founder, like so I've never really I've had partners on projects, like co-host on podcasts and stuff like that, but not um and like yeah, like I used to think of like if I have a weekly meeting with a team member, then that's a weekly project for me to do.
yeah,
Like prepare for it, what's the agenda, run it, host it.
yeah,
But really it's just like I just need to show up to hear what they have to say to
yeah,
me so that they get FaceTime with me and the team.
yes, yeah. And it's a forcing function in a lot of ways. Like because now we're a team of four because we hired Jason in August. We hired Helen in April of 2019, and then no, sorry, 2021, and then Jason in August of 2021. And we don't do any other like I could go weeks without speaking face to face with them if we don't have that weekly meeting. And
Yeah.
uh, also I've noticed for me, I maybe I don't notice it as much, but like I've definitely noticed it with John. Like if we don't get FaceTime, it's not good for our relationship. Like it's
Hmm.
not it's something that we need to have. So one on one
Yeah.
or in this small meeting, we really need that FaceTime. And I think Jason and Helen are actually similar to John. Like they really enjoy being able to see each other and having, time to and today like Jason and John are on vacation, so it's just Helen and I, but it's just the standing thing like we're going to every week.
Hmm.
And that was helpful for me because I'm
Yeah, and it's like a small community,
yeah.
kind of a small family. Like you're part of this thing. You're committed to it. We're gonna
Yeah.
like I like for me like with like async and what I'm doing with zip message and everything. Like a lot of that was born out of just my style of like being like if there doesn't need a meeting, we don't need to have a
Yeah.
meeting. Um, and like for better or worse. And I think that in my previous business, it was so much more about just a repeatable production line.
Yeah.
We're not building anything like whereas a SaaS, you're building something new every single month,
Yeah.
whether it's a new feature or a new marketing or new whatever.
Mhm.
Um, but in that business, like I did some meetings in the very early days, and every week it was like, all right, well, what's new?
Yeah.
Client work, same stuff every week.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I don't need to be here.
Yeah.
Um, but like I could see with a small SaaS team, and now like it's basically just me and a couple of developers, but they're in India and we communicate mostly over GitHub issues and
Mhm.
Slack and a little bit in zip message.
Yeah.
Um, and when I work with marketers, like on content stuff or podcast stuff, it's really all zip message. It's like, here's the thing I worked on. What do you think? Let me get your feedback. We go back and forth.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I find zip message really good for especially people I don't like our team. I think there's just this other level of with John and I as co-founders, I realized pretty early on like there needs to be recurring emotional connection and it's worth investing in that. And
yeah,
then
I could see
once
that.
we have, once Helen and Jason came on, like the pandemic was tough. I think it kind of it wore us out in a way that we didn't realize. And then as soon as we hired Jason and Helen and we had these weekly team meetings, all four of us were kind of like, this is kind of nice. Like, we just get to see each other. We get to, talk a little bit, joke around a little bit. Then Helen takes us through, her weekly update. And then at the end, John and Jason can share a little bit about, what they're working on. And it's also time for us to talk about things that bug us. Like, Justin, the pricing page still doesn't have this. Like, can you do that? And it's like, oh yeah, okay, I'll do it right away.
Yeah.
But for other folks that I don't talk to as much, or, especially people that want to book meetings with me, whether it's just a customer or someone in my audience and they want me to like book a call with them, usually I just say, well, let's just do it over zip message. So I'll record a video and then you can reply to it. And I love that you can reply to videos in zip message. And I'll tell people that, like, I'll say to a customer, like, okay, here, I've just answered your question, which they like freaking love, by the way. Like, when you record a video just for a customer, it's next level. And they know they can reply. They rarely do. Right. So I invite them to.
Dude, that's the biggest thing I hear it's like the biggest problem that
I don't think it's a problem
all the time.
I think like they can. I don't think it's a usability thing. I think it's just
right. That's the thing. So I didn't intend for this to be a zip message podcast. But yeah, like that's a big thing in my mind space at the moment. It's because I hear it a lot from customers. It's like I create and send videos. I don't get a lot of replies back. But what I find is, and this gets to like use cases, and I'm trying to dig in on which are the most valuable use cases from a marketing and positioning standpoint. Because it's the ones where they're like customer support or like audience, where they're sending a zip message out to and they might want a response back, but they don't always get one, or like sales prospecting where there's not a lot of investment on both sides of the conversation. But if it's a remote team member, employee relationship, manager relationship, or a client and an agency relationship, both ends, or like a coach and their coaching mentee or whatever, like there's a lot of investment on both ends in replying back and having a long conversation. Yeah. So, but so it's like it's all these different use cases, and I'm trying to figure out like what to emphasize.
Yeah. I think it's just nice having the option. Like a recurring problem for our customers is stuff like DNS. So we have this tiny little feature, tiny little feature that allows you to connect a custom domain that you've registered to your Transistor podcast website. And that one little field causes us so much support because DNS is a fucking menace.
I just upgraded my Transistor account today again.
Oh, nice.
And that was I was just looking at the domain thing. I gotta get that connected.
Yeah, so you can.
So Justin, I need some customer support on connecting my domain now.
And I mean, zip messages is really clutch for this because there's so many different providers, and I've walked through. I have like one GoDaddy video that we reference, but people are like, "Well, I use whatever," and I'm like, "Okay, well, I can create a video for you that shows you," and then they can reply with a video or a screenshot of what they're seeing, and it just makes it. And we have so much help.
Message templates now, so they're kind of like canned responses but videos. Yeah, so you can have a video for GoDaddy, a video for. And what's cool is you could just insert them into any conversation that you're already in.
Oh yeah, I see this in the. You've got like turn any message into reusable message template. Yeah, so this is like exactly what I need is to we need to build up a library of all the different DNS providers. But there's some sticky issues like that it's just so helpful to have the back and forth. And honestly, like it's worth it for us to still have it because it's a cool feature. And people want to connect their custom domain to their podcast website. And the difference between Transistor and a competitor is customer support. Like we have a live chat widget. And from the beginning, this is something I learned from Spencer at Podia. because he was a big believer in live chat from the beginning. And I was like, what are you doing, man? Like that's so much effort. And
I hate it when a company forces me as a customer, like forces me to use live chat. You know, because first of all, it's never live. You know that the agent is running 10 different chats and they're going to take 10 minutes to reply to every question I ask. So now I got to like sit there and wait, you know, and sometimes they say it's live chat and they're literally just not even there at all. You know, and it's like, just give me an email address so that I need async. I'm all about async.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to sit here.
But live chat for us, even when we can't get to him right away, there's something about it that when it works, it's so magical. And I'm feeling like I want to double down on it because it's such a differentiator between us and
I feel like that it would be a huge benefit. Maybe you already do this, to double down on it and be great at it.
Yes.
Right. Like have a real person ready to, like, it's super hard to actually do that at scale, but like, but to actually have a real person, you know?
Well, we don't use bots. We have no chat bots. And the reason we hired Helen was that, you know, I would go to sleep at, you know, 11 o'clock and I'd be answering support. It's on my phone. So it would just like pop up on my phone and I'd be answering support tickets up until 11 o'clock PM. But then I'd go to sleep and then, you know, tickets in Europe would kind of build up. So we hired Helen and she just like covers a pretty wide day. Like, it gets busier for her in the evening because that's when our North American customers are kind of online. And so she has kind of structured her day. So she still gets pinged and she'll answer right away. But we try to respond as soon as we can. And every once in a while, you know, there'll be someone that doesn't get a response for 20 minutes, but I still think it's worth doing even when a few people fall through the cracks. And I think even to get better at it is worth it.
I am curious, like, why don't we stick with this as like the first main topic, which is like day-to-day workflows and schedules and like work lifestyle. Because this was actually just on my mind this week. I've been trying to get better at, like you were saying, like planning out personal tasks, what I'm working on, what I'm prioritizing. But then at some point here, I do want to shift into podcast creation.
Okay, sure.
As a thing. All right. So like my thing I tweeted like 2 weeks ago was like, I feel like you were just saying, I really relate to that where it's like, every day is sort of like a whim. Like what's giving me energy today?
Yeah.
There's a feature I want to work on, or somebody asked for this thing and I'm going to spend half a day on it. And you know, I get pulled in a lot of directions, a lot of like self-inflicted, like, oh, I think I'm going to work on that. Maybe I could ship this by Friday. Now I'm spending the whole week doing that. Yeah. But was that really what I needed to do for my business? Was that the most important thing that will actually move the needle?
Yeah.
Or other priorities like I know I got to be exercising more in my life. I know I want to have more free time to hang out with my kids. Am I actually being intentional to prioritize these things and put them into my schedule?
Yeah.
And I've never been one of those like I'm organized when it comes to like systems and stuff for my team and my business. But for me personally, like I don't schedule my calendar with my tasks or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm not a crazy like Asana or Notion or ClickUp person.
Yeah.
I just need a simple, like most of it's just gut instincts. But so now I'm trying to do more like I'm using things for Mac. Like this is my to-do list. I'm going to try to knock through it. But I'm curious like what it looks like for you. Like because I know you're sort of like the marketing / product guy. You're not like John where you're in the code all day. I am in the code a lot.
Yeah.
Both building myself and a lot of directing my developers and reviewing their code and what they did and then going back and finalizing a feature. Like that sucks up a lot of my time. So I'm curious with you, like, are you doing multiple projects in a day, or do you commit to like one project in a full day, or what does that look like?
Yeah, it's pretty loose. I mean, for me, this is really the benefit of finding John, honestly. Like all those years of doing stuff on my own. And I could force myself to be organized. And, there was a time where every block of my calendar was scheduled, and I probably needed that for a time. But at least for now, who knows if this will be the way it is forever. The way I like working is I just have this rhythm. So the rhythm of my day starts after the kids have gone to school. I put on my jacket, get my shoes on, and walk down to the office. And that's 30 minutes. And that's where I listen to podcasts.
It's a 30-minute walk.
Yeah.
Even in the winter.
Even in the winter. Yeah. Just walk downtown to my office. I can ride my bike in the summer, but I like having the time, like that 25, 30-minute walk. And it means I'm getting an hour of physical activity every day, which is also important. Mm-hmm. And I just like that rhythm. So then I come downtown.
That's really cool because you also have that separation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I miss that. I had an office a few years ago, 5 minutes away from my home.
Yeah.
And then when we moved to this house, I got this home office.
Yeah.
Now my kids, and then my kitchen is right behind me. My kids are playing in the room over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I finish my day, it's literally 5 steps and I'm in dinner time.
Oh yeah.
And it's
I tried that too. It just doesn't work for me, especially because,
and I'm not disciplined enough to stop working an hour before and have a beer.
Yeah. The unwinding time. And I can get pretty manic at work. If I really get into something, it's like I've gone down into a black hole, and then I emerge when I look at my phone. I see my wife's texted me 10 times and it's 6 o'clock, that can be a day. Yeah. And so unwinding from that takes about 30 minutes. And so, I like walking to work. Today I listened to you and Jordan on my walk to work because it fires me up. I like hearing what other founders are thinking about and doing. And it gets me, my brain starts working on what might I do today? And then, it could be something that I listen to that inspires me to start working on that thing. And that's part of the rhythm is these days I just show up at work. I check our customer support, make sure check Slack and all that stuff. And then I just start pushing a rock up a hill. And that could be working on the marketing site. That could be recording a video. That could be, doing whatever. And
that's actually what I'm curious about. What do your rocks look like? Because again, you're sort of the marketing side of the business, right? So, what's and how long does each project last? Are these
Yeah. So yesterday,
what's a typical thing?
Yesterday I was throughout the day, I was just hopping from one thing to the next. A lot of days I am just hopping around. It's just I could do this, I'd do this, and none of it's planned. It's I'm going to write some tweets, and then I'm going to go over here and update the Transistor blog, and this knowledge base needs to be updated. And, I'm going to jump on a call with this person. It's very in the moment.
So you're the kind of marketing approach. You have this marketing approach that I tend to relate to, which is just keep the activity flowing. Keep it going.
Yes.
Just do a lot of stuff. Because there's these other people who I'm always so jealous of, but I've never operated this way. Super analytical. We're gonna run 10 tests. We're gonna measure every single thing. Each one is gonna last 24 days, and then we're gonna graph it out, and then we're gonna know what our channel is. And I wish it was that clean, but it's not.
That was one of my favorite interactions at MicroConf is I went out for beers with Lars Lofgren, and who did marketing at Kissmetrics for a long time, and we just had this amazing 2-hour conversation. And at the end, he's like, Justin, we're both in marketing, but we are both completely different in our approach. Yeah. He's very analytical, very he wants to test everything. And I'm way more qualitative. If he's quantitative, I'm way more qualitative. I like the feel of things. I like what gives me energy and what gives the product energy. I like this feeling of there's just stuff happening, and I'm going to create part of that energy every day. And
Yep.
there's pros and cons to it, and it is nice having people on the team now. For example, we did this test where I think YouTube SEO especially is going to be really important for us. There's certain keywords like how to start a podcast that are really hard to get on regular Google search results. But in YouTube, it opens up this new opportunity. It's still competitive, but not as competitive as what's happening in the regular Google search engine. And there's some interplay between them where if you rank well on YouTube, it can actually help your ranking in the regular search engine. So we did this test. So I've recorded now 3 versions every year. How to start a podcast in 2022. So I finished recording it. And by the way, the trigger for recording video is haircut day. When I get a haircut, then I record a video. So it's like all of like the rhythm of life, It's like what's happening? It's like, oh, haircut. It's just like, okay, that I know I'm going to record some video that day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've come to, rightly or wrongly conclude that like the search for the single channel that you want to double and triple down on is elusive or like not even possible. Like I think it's so much more like it's just going to be a lot of things that sort of build on each other, a lot of little activities, and then ultimately there will be a couple things that bring the pop.
Yes,
like a big product hunt launch, or we talked about this last time, but like like every now and then you're gonna run into something that brings a spike of traffic and customers. Yeah. But in between that stuff, you just got to keep having, whatever it is, like podcast appearances, SEO, content wins, integration partnerships. Yeah. Like keep the activity flowing, and this stuff will just build on each other. And then eventually, of course, with SaaS, you have a customer base that starts to compound on itself and recommend it. And stuff.
It is iterative, and like, again, now that we have new team members, I think it was really helpful for me to realize there's just a bunch of stuff I'm not good at. And so like Jason, this new developer we hired, he has experience running massive cost per click campaigns. And John and I have always just been grumpy about that. Like, nah, it's always a waste of money. Like, we've tried it a bunch of times. Yeah. And he's like pushing us to say, that video Justin recorded, how to start a podcast, is really good. How can we get it in front of more people? And, Justin worked all of his magic and he got it up to 1,000 views, but how can we, amplify that? And he's like, we should do some paid YouTube. And, John's not into it, and we're like, but he convinces us. We're like, okay, let's do it. So I set up a campaign, $50 a day for 4 days or something. And he's like, no, like if we're going to do this, it needs to be $500 a day for 4 or 5 days. Because he says investing higher is better than having a bunch of really low days. So we did $500 a day for 4 or 5 days. So it cost us like $2,000. But that whole experiment was fascinating because the video went from 1,000 views.
2,000 to learn a lot. Yeah.
The video went from 1,000 views to 38,000 views. And I always like wonder, because like one of the ways I'm trying to optimize this thing is I go to YouTube in incognito mode and I type in, how to start a podcast in 2022. And I'm like, some of these videos, I'm like, they have so many views. Like, how did they get there? And I'm realizing that a lot of these people are paying for views, and that's what gets them, like there's one from B&H Photo that has 1.3 million views. It's like, how did they do that? And it's like order of magnitudes larger than.
And something like B&H, must be paying for that kind of traffic across so many different topics, right? Like they're for those who don't know, that they're like an electronics store, a chain of electronics stores, right? And like podcasting microphones are just one of hundreds of different products that they sell. It's not like they're a podcasting company, but if they're investing in that many views on just that YouTube channel or just that YouTube video, think about what they must be spending on for like stereo equipment or whatever GPS, whatever else they sell. Like they're probably doing that across so many different.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see you like pull a lever and then the leverage it gives you. So we went from 1,000 views to 31,000, and then we stopped paying for ads. But since we stopped paying for ads, we've gotten another 7,000 views. So there's something additive about these things.
Oh, what do you know? If you pay Google money, they'll send you more traffic.
Yeah. And so that stuff, I love that stuff. And that kind of interplay between me and now the team works well with my style, because they can mention something in Slack and I can be like, yeah, let's like, okay, that's my day today. Today I'm learning how to optimize this for, cost per click traffic or whatever.
All right. So that actually ties in with like probably my last question on this topic, but it's the big one that really sparked this whole thing for me in the last 2 weeks of like trying to be more intentional about what I choose to work on each day.
Yeah.
And is that contributing to the bigger picture plan?
Yeah.
And for me, that planning usually happens more on like a quarterly basis.
Yeah.
But like in your example, this YouTube ads experiment, you spend $2,000 on this one YouTube video.
Mm-hmm.
It explodes the views. That's awesome. The way that you explained it made it sound like it was sort of like on a whim, like, oh, we might try this. But like, is there any? There must be like a higher level thing going on. Like how can we double or triple our top of funnel traffic to the Transistor website this quarter?
Yeah.
Right. Like, are you trying to align the things that you choose to spend your time on and now your team's time on with what the big goal for the business is this quarter?
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably, so John and I will, at the end of the year, we kind of marked out cycles like in the shape up process. And I just did this in Google Sheets. I just have like, columns for cycle 1, cycle 2, cycle 3, cycle 4. And that gives us an idea generally of how, like in a year, we have basically 6 cycles and then a half cycle in December. And so we know, okay, these.
And are those product features? Are those marketing projects? Or both?
They're both. So we have the dates. So like we're in cycle 2 right now, which is February 28th to April 8th. And then April 11th to April 22nd is going to be a cool down period. But that block from February 28th to April 22nd is like, that's the block. And so then we have context, like what else is happening during that time. So MicroConf and Easter are both things we have listed there. And then
You going?
Sorry?
MicroConf? Are you going?
No,
to
I'm not going this year. But we had it marked down just in case we decided to go.
Cool.
And then product focus is podcast websites. And then we have a link to a shaping doc. That's where we kind of like really brainstorm over time ideas that we want to work on. And then this is a pretty loose plan still, but it just gives us an idea of like, these are the cycles of work we have available to us. And we have some ideas for each one. And so then we have a shaping doc that kind of explains, here's the problem, here's our appetite for the problem, here's the solution. And then we have a marketing focus underneath that. And then I've kind of got some things in there like, okay, what am I going to be focusing on in a strategic sense, But for me, it still ends up being like once that kind of general rhythm for the year is set, then my actual day-to-day is not super strategic. I'm just like, I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I just feel like I know the things that when I'm investing in them consistently produce results in the long term. And so I really stay focused on a lot of that stuff. It's like very much like a James Clear kind of philosophy. The habits that you get into every day, the little actions you take are the votes for what your product is going to become and what your marketing is going to become. And so there's some strategy in there, and there's definitely people on the team that are probably thinking more analytically than I am and are pushing me to think, that way, or to think like, like, hey, what are we going to do about promoting these new podcast websites?
Yeah.
But
I
it's
think
very
like
much
doing
in
this
the
for a
moment.
long time.
It's like, I'm just like, okay, like I know I need to talk about this. I know I need to, I better make a newsletter. But I'm not going to have a content calendar that says, okay, I got to have a newsletter done. I just know like roughly, like I want to have at least one newsletter every month. And I just get kind of this feel for like, yeah, it's time for another one.
I definitely relate to that. I mean, I definitely came to this point recently where my schedule is more open than ever. Like it was open for a while, even in the last few years, even working on audience ops, but like there were a lot of sales calls in there that I had to do and random check-ins and stuff like that. But now almost everything I do is async. The only calls I really ever have are podcast recordings these days, like honestly. And so that left me with all this open space where like, because I think like doing this for a long period of time, like entrepreneurship and having this level of freedom, like I've worked from home for 13 years, been self-employed. So during that time, you start to just get better at the decision process of what to work on each day. Looking back on the early years, you start to realize, all right, there's a lot of wasted time here, a lot of wasted time there. Which things really move the needle. So I am pretty aware of like, if what I'm working on, like, is this important enough to actually be spending my time on it?
Yeah.
But like, still, it's like, it's still an open question of like, am I being strategic enough?
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
It's always a good.
I think everyone's different in that way too. Yeah. It's and who knows? Like maybe if Lars Lofgren was in charge of marketing at Transistor, he'd be killing it.